James, talk to us about that sort of first big project from the structural perspective and bringing this place to life. There were a lot of things to do. Tell us more about that.
So when we first started here, let's face it, we were pretty much idiots, weren't we? We had these big ideas and we're like, yeah, we can do that. And then the reality of actually, right, we've taken down a wall that weighs 7 tons, that's a lot of weight and a lot of waste. So we have to start planning that. And then as we started taking a lot of things out, we discovered that there were some electrical issues that needed to be addressed. So the complete rewiring of the bar was a bit of a surprise. And then as we got higher and higher, we took 3 ceilings out, and then we realized we had, I counted them because I took them down, 852 2-kilo tiles that I had to wrench. 852, that was Christmas the first year, wasn't it? Because that was the time that the workmen would finish and we had as homework. And then Chris decided to throw himself down some stairs and dislocate his shoulder to get out of doing the ceiling tiles. So very convenient. So we done that, and the waste from that. And then as we kept going up ceilings, we realized that our plans might change a bit because we had this really beautiful sort of ironworks in the ceiling that kind of matched on brand for what we wanted, didn't it? So then that changed, and then we had to start thinking, right, so we've now changed a little bit, we've gone higher than we thought, so we need to keep a little bit lower than we needed to be in parts. We couldn't keep any ceilings because a lot of it had been burnt by the electrics. And we were very lucky with the Marie, weren't we? He was very much, do what you need to do, just don't change the outside of the building, except here's a list of colours that you need to change now because your previous owners painted the wrong colour. Right, okay, thank you. That was the kind of conversation, wasn't it? It was like, right, we need to, and then by the time it had gone through Armory, the regional sort of paperwork, and then Bâtiment de France, we'd gone from 9 colours down to 2, so we could have burgundy red or battleship grey, wasn't it? So we went for battleship grey. And that was the only 2 things we were allowed.
Yeah.
But it was just jumping through hurdles. That was more of the challenge.
Yeah. And it was trying to understand the hurdles. I think kind of winding right back at the start, that we were really clear on the business plan. We were really clear on what we wanted to kind of make, to build. Because everyone told us it's very important for the Marie, to the mayor, to actually get yourself known, introduce yourself. If you don't get on with the town hall, France will be quite a complicated place to exist. So we met him about a year before we'd purchased, to actually present our plans. And we did a slightly cringy presentation in French, but we bought him some of our beers, and we basically said, look, we want to build this, are you supportive? And he said yes, which was incredible, big green flag. We were really clear on our business plan, but then trying to understand, well, what do we do? How do we reopen the doors? Do we need to ask anyone to do that? Structural engineers, building works, building regs. We were coming from the UK thinking, well, how does this differ in France? And that was a minefield of trying to understand. And we were asking the big questions, but as James says, a lot of the response back was the shutters here were painted lilac. So we were just being told, you've got to don't paint them lilac. And we're like, no, we'll do that. But it's what about building regs? What about building control? Can we just talk about some of the bigger things? And that was quite a painful start.
Yeah.
But that's why we reached out to partners, French plants, we got recommended to us, and actually then just trying to understand, how does this work? And it was really important to us, and hands up, our French wasn't very good at the very start. We needed someone that could speak English and French.
Yeah.
We needed someone that was in France. We needed someone that actually understood fully the process. And that's why we reached out to French Plan, because they could actually help us, and hands up, we needed that.
You think the headaches French Plan took away from us?
Yes, yeah.
That was pretty crazy. The amount of times that we're like, look, we've got this situation. And they were so good on email. They were always like, okay, they're not, they wouldn't sort of be like, you idiot. They just responded very politely. Okay, let us work through this together.
This
and
is
they
the
always
process.
found a solution for us.
Yeah.
And they were very good at contacting the Murray, weren't they, on our behalf, and just making sure that actually we'd got the right end of the stick, and we were all working towards that same goal.
Yeah.
Because they were very good at the fire side of things as well. The contact with the fire department was very different to what the Murray was saying. And the Murray, although they were correct, but there was also a correct element to what we needed as well. So it all come together very well, but I don't think we'd have got that if it wasn't for French.
No.
James, in terms of that, you said some of the challenges. What were some of the challenges?
So going through the building stages, we needed a complete new door, which sounds easy, but it was 3 meters by 2.5 meters, the door. So it's quite a big door. And then we went through Bâtiment de France. French planners helped us go through that side of things. And then we also had the added complication that it had to have at least an A+ rating for efficiency. So we went to a woodwork person that would be able to do it traditionally, and it come in at ridiculous cost, and it was just way out of our budget. So then we're back to the drawing board, and then we found a very good German company that produces doors that are very efficient, and then we needed to get them delivered. But again, because they had models, we could send it to French plans. Yep, that's fine. And then the Murray looked at it. Yep, that fits in with Bâtiment de France. It's battleship grade. It's A++. So we ticked all the boxes. So that was just one of the things. And then we had the fire regulations. So we had to make sure that the door on the new doors we were fitted outwards because it's a fire exit. Then we needed fire lighting. But we both had UK jobs that were very risk averse, so we were very much, okay, what would we have done in the UK? So we added a little bit of layers, didn't we?
Yeah.
So for example, we just needed a fire alarm and 2 fire extinguishers up here plus 2 exit signs. But we've also got fat fryers and things like that, so we made sure we had CO2 as well as fire blankets for electrical fires. And we also just quickly ran over with staff just a very good understanding. Actually, if it's electrical fire, we don't put water on it, and it's just things that we sort of take for granted in the UK because that's what we're used to in workplaces. But it wasn't really a requirement, it was more just a nice to do. So we took it the next level, didn't we? Just to make sure that if we ever did have, we are quite risk averse.
It's the due diligence of, you know, what if, what happens if, and I think understanding now, going through that process from an accessibility point of view, disability legislation was it now exists in France, but there was lots of legislative changes relatively recently. But thinking about the property that we acquired, it's been operating for 20 years, so it's really kind of skipped the beat of any of that. So we had a lot of catch up to do. And again, through French plans, they helped us understand actually what do we need to do into table layout, into doors, into kind of toilet facilities, and actually just understanding that. And then into fire doors, fire regulations. And that was so helpful because, you know, what we bought was, we understand hospitality, we understand brewing, we can operate a business. But actually all of that red tape, we were just going to fall over otherwise, you know, without the right partner to kind of help us navigate through. So that was very, very useful.
We've done a lot of research. The disability access and things. We were very lucky that a lady in the village has a wheelchair, so she come down and we walked through. So the disabled access in the toilet, one thing that was recommended, the way we fitted the handrail, she thought, no, please don't put it that way, I won't be able to use that. So she showed us how to use it. And then the sink that we bought, no, please don't you get that. The sink you've got's fine because that's easier for disabled people to get to. And then just the placements of the ramps and tables. And she's got her favourite table now, so she knows she comes in, she goes through the door, unless it's her table, because it's just perfect for her. And it's also other people suggested for people with autism, they quite like sensory things. So we have these sofas here, they're like a suede. So we tend to get people that come in and their children would like to sit on that because it triggers a sensory help. And it was just silly things, just asking people, just actually, what would make you more comfortable coming into this space? Because we're quite rare in France to have sofas in a bar. We wanted it to be a chill out space where everyone just feels comfortable. and we sort of played with the lighting, and we wanted a warm light rather than that harsh sort of strip lighting that can be quite popular in the continent. And then we got LEDs again that can be quite good for people with autism, because it's something that happens in the distance and they can watch, and it's a distraction. And that was just by purely asking people, wasn't it? It's like, what could we do to make our space a bit more welcoming that you wouldn't expect in France? And then quite happily with French plans, they would help with just ensuring that it was all legally compliant, and that would maybe go on the next level up.
Chris, talk to us now about stage 2. We've got this other project coming up. Tell us about it. Tell us what you're doing with French plans, and just tell us more.
So we're always thinking, which is no good for our health and mental well-being. But we're always thinking, what's next? We're always thinking, kind of, what else can we do in the property? And there is a whole other kind of wing, I suppose.
The West Wing.
Currently not used. And we actually said when we purchased the property, we need to do something with this. You know, when it comes for us to sell, whenever that moment happens, if we haven't done something with this space, we've kind of let the building down. So wind back to the 1950s, this property used to be a 22-bedroom hotel. It was big tea dancers on the terrace, like outdoor noise, live music. So we kind of just want to continue bringing that spirit. The fact that that bit of the property is still sleeping, it's time for us to do something with it. So our ideas at the moment are to renovate it into self-contained apartments, so gîtes in French. And we are thinking at the moment, how do we actually do that? So there are lots of hurdles to overcome, accessibility, exits, entry points. But the fact that it used to be habitable, it used to have existing kind of bathrooms and hotel rooms. We do not want to become a hotel. And all the regulatory kind of side of it, but actually from a gîte point of view, we think it's a completely different client base. Again, we've spoken to some people, we've looked at the market around here, and there's a gap. So we're thinking actually, again, in our peak season for 16 weeks, what actually that could look like. So we're thinking maybe 3 gîtes, offering a totally different offering to our bedrooms beneath, and then thinking what that could look like.
James, tell us a little bit about the history of the area. I think there's a little twist with the history. Tell us more.
So the new part, the West Wing that it's got an interesting past, hasn't it? Our building's always been the rebel child of the village. So in World War II, it's a resistance stronghold, and it showed lots of anti-Nazi films, and that's where it became a cinema just after World War II. And we've still got the old cinema room and things like that, and we've still got some cinema memorabilia in the place. But the part that we're just about to now start was a brothel. So it was from in the 60s until it became illegal in France. So it's still very much set up like a brothel. It's got a gentleman's washroom and things like that. So it's interesting part of history. But as our parents said, we went to France to buy a chateau and ended up buying a brothel. So it's always quite fun. But we're proud of our buildings past, and actually even now it's become more of a rebel child. We're not doing conventional French. We're just a bit more crazy Brits on the bridge.
And Chris, with French plans, they've done a great job with phase 1 and really helping you through that. So what will they be helping you with phase 2?
Yeah, so thinking about everything that French plans have done for us on phase 1, we need their help again with phase 2. So understanding any restrictions from occupancy, how many units can you have, how many people can you have. There are lots of regulations about chambre d'hôte, and trying to understand that in a gîte kind of setup. And then probably more so, which we didn't do a lot on phase 1, but actually for phase 2, it's a blank canvas. So actually thinking about floor plans, thinking about stairwells. This is a bigger project, it's a big knock through. It's actually remove everything in the building, keep the walls, and then actually think about how do you rebuild up. So from a French plans point of view, it will be a complete design. It will be thinking about entry points, exit points, any fire regulations. It's still private accommodation as a sheet. But yeah, really kind of getting into that detail. And then once all of that is drawn up, thinking also about return and revenue back to the business, then approvals. What's likely to be approved? We're in a zone rouge. We're by the river. We've got a kind of manor house, a chateau in our village. So there are lots of restrictions on external kind of building works. Now our mayor's told us, do anything inside, but don't change the external. And it's trying to understand, well, what does that mean? What does that look like in reality to Bâtiment de France or the planning stages? So that's really where we're, again, wanting a professional's help to not take us down a romance of, yes, you can do 3 sheets and you can do 4 bedrooms and your revenue can be X. But the reality of actually, you know, how do we do this properly for return? But actually, how do we do this to get this, you know, approved? So yeah, so it's a big project. Phase 2.
That's a headache. Give that to French plans. That's a headache for them.
And James, finally, what is it that you like about French plans in the way that they work and what they deliver for you?
I love their professionalism. I like the way French plans they contact you constantly. They're always updating you on what they've actually done, why they've done it, and then quite often you'll get a phone call from another official in France to say, okay, we've had this application from French plans, and there'll be more questions in that, so you can go straight back to them, and there's no sort of like, oh, I don't remember this. They're straight on it. They know exactly what they've done, why they've done it, and actually these are your answers to your questions. They tend to have an all-round good knowledge as well. I think they're a really good hand. It's like, look, we get this. We've all done this before in France as well. We get the pain you're going through. And I kind of like that. They're kind of giving you like a hug at the same time. You're crying on their shoulders. But I like that they've got professionalism, they've got the hug, and then they've also like, you need to get on with this. There's a bit of tough love in there as well. Yeah. And that worked out really well for us.
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
Because we've got so many questions for the next phase. There's certain schemes that we might be able to apply for some funding, and we're hoping we might be able to get some solar panels on our roof now. Bâtiment de France can't stop us. So we've got some questions that's just massive headaches, because you've got so many different routes, and you go down Facebook or you look on Google or you ask your town hall, and they've all got different answers to what the regional government and then national government. So actually to have somebody who can make sense of that.
Yeah.
It's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing for us, and there are lots of handholders that exist that kind of self-promote. But the watch out with that, and I personally got bit on my visa to actually be in France, is I was very badly recommended some advice. And it's actually working with a partner that's done this professionally and actually resides in the country. And I think that's a big kind of benefit and bonus to working with French plans, that they've ridden this road before many a time. And even though we were getting lots of letters from various departments that we just didn't understand, and again, like a hug, they just went, that's okay, like we can complete that with you. We'll explain, you know, when you start building, what signage you need to put in your building, and just those red flag moments of, if you don't have this, you could be fined. They won't stop work, but it will cost you. So don't make those mistakes. And actually just having a partner that made us aware of all of those actually removed some of those otherwise would have been kind of headaches, and just kind of feeling a little bit beaten up in the process.
I remember the emails I used to love from them, because you'd send something off that, like, something had arrived in the post and you'd had to sign for it because it was deadly, and you were like, okay, what's gone on? And you would send it off, and you'd always respond, yeah, we were expecting this, send them this. And then it was just done, and you're just like, oh. They were always one step ahead, weren't they? It was never, oh, this has arrived, help. It was just, yeah, we're expecting this, send them this.
It's okay.
Yeah.